This is your tech news briefing for Wednesday, February 22nd. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Payments for ransomware attacks fell sharply last year, according to federal officials, cybersecurity analysts, and blockchain firms. As many listeners know, ransomware payments are like the digital equivalent of hostage payments. Hackers take control of computer systems until they are paid a fee, often in cryptocurrencies. These attacks have crippled private companies, hospitals, schools, and public infrastructure. So, the decline in payments is seen as significant in the fight against these hacking groups. Joining me to discuss how this drop came about and what comes next in the fight against cyber criminals is our cybersecurity reporter, Robert McMillan. Hi, Bob. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hi, Zoe. Great to be here.
So, payments to ransomware hackers are down, but how far down are we talking? And is this just about the amounts paid out, or are overall attacks down too?
Well, I don't think the attacks are down, but what's happening is the results of the attacks is changing. The firm Chainalysis, which kind of tracks the payments to ransomware groups, says that the percentage amount paid to them went down 40% in 2022 from 2021. So that's a pretty big drop. And what that means is the ransomware people may be they're certainly trying just as hard as ever to try and infect companies and then to shake them down and extort them. But companies aren't paying as often as they were. Another firm that we talked to, Coveware, says that the average amount that it's paying to ransomware groups actually dropped year over year, again by a similar figure. It went from $400,000 per event to $300,000 in 2022. So you can see the amount being paid to them is going down, the amount per incident is going down, and it's putting a little bit of a squeeze on the ransomware operators.
What have law enforcement said about this drop?
Oh, they want to take credit for it, right? Because so in 2021, there was this Colonial Pipeline ransomware incident, which really got the attention of everyone in the United States, right up to the president. And so at that point, the law enforcement agencies, the FBI, Department of Justice, really put ransomware in their crosshairs. And they've actually done a fair bit since that incident to try and push back on the problem. So the most remarkable story around that, I think, of the last year was this Hive takedown where they got access to the secret servers used by the ransomware operators, and they got the encryption keys that they were selling to their victims and just gave them away for free to all the victims. That they estimate the ransomware group Hive lost about $130 million in potential profits from this operation. I think the strategic move that the government is doing here is they're just trying to make it a less profitable business to be in. Because let's be honest, these ransomware groups, they really do operate like businesses.
It does sound like some of these big announcements that we've heard over the last year, high-profile charges and arrests, the kind of going after these hacking groups has played a role. What does that mean for these ransomware groups, which, as you say, often operate like businesses?
The truth is, the thing that's had the biggest effect, I think, is really boring. It's just that companies are getting better at backing up their systems and being able to recover when they're all shut down by ransomware. It's thankless work until you get to the point where you're infected, and then you can bounce back, you can just ignore their demands and come back online. So what that's doing to the ransomware operators is it's making it a little bit harder for them to have this money-making machine that they've operated for years. So what they're doing is they're looking for new ways of getting in, and they're looking for new types of companies to infect, ones that maybe aren't as prepared as the traditional victims of ransomware. And in some cases, they might even be moving to other types of crime, like other types of financial fraud.
So are you saying that these ransomware groups are having to change their business models?
A little bit. We talked to one researcher who said that this group, it used to be called Conti, but it's sort of a group of cyber criminals that have been around for a long time. And traditionally, they had one way of getting onto everybody's networks. It was really successful, but with the attention being paid to ransomware, they were having a harder time getting that initial infection, getting onto your network where they could install the ransomware. So they set up all these call centers where they would send out emails and you'd get like a disturbing looking email And maybe it would say you owed money or something like that. And you'd call this call center, and the person at the call center would try to talk you into installing some software on your computer that would ultimately allow the ransomware people to get ransomware on your company's network. So that was like a business model change that they did, and it didn't work out. Like, they weren't making money doing this. The call center people weren't talking people into installing the software enough. And so they actually had layoffs there. They shut down these call centers.
So big picture then, I mean, is this a sign that the tables have turned on ransomware attacks?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I would really not predict the end of ransomware.
Is that too hopeful for me?
That's not the kind of bet that you'd ever make money on, I don't think. But it shows that there are some things that could be done. This was like a pretty amazing business for the criminals. You know, if you think about it, ransomware, just a few years ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, the average ransomware demand was like hundreds of dollars, and then it was tens of thousands of dollars. And now Coveware is saying it's in the range of $300,000. There's been this great inflation in what they've been able to ask for. And until 2021, until that Colonial event, there wasn't like a lot of pushback. There wasn't a lot of pressure on them. And now they're facing some realities. Their business is not going to be as profitable as it was. So I think that there are many entities in the world that would like to continue to make it more difficult for them to do business. You know, companies just stop paying if they get their act together and they can recover when they're infected and just restore everything for backups instead of having to pay for a decryption key. Then I don't think it's going to go away, but it could become less of a problem.
All right, that's our cybersecurity reporter, Robert McMillan. Thanks for joining us, Bob.
Thanks, Zoe.
And that's it for today's Tech News Briefing. If you want more tech stories, check out our website, WSJ.com. I'm Zoe Thomas for the Wall Street Journal. Thanks for listening.